right, good morning, everyone. Can you put in chat if you can hear me, and then I'll get started. Okay, great. Well, welcome to the Fulbright information session. Let's see here. So my name is Melanie Meinzer, and I am the Director of National and International Fellowships and Awards here at UTEP. And I'm also the Director of the new Office of Student Fellowships and Awards. And this office was established to support you as you apply for prestigious external fellowships like Fulbright. So one of the distinctions I like to make for students is that the difference between, say, the Office of Scholarships at UTEP and my office is that my office is primarily for these external fellowships like Fulbright, Rhodes, Boren, NSF, and so these are all funded by external entities, not in the university. So you see we have about 16 people here, which is a good sized group. We have students from across the colleges. We have freshmen through seniors. We have graduate students who signed up for it, or probably also in the room now. And so whether you're from the College of Engineering or Liberal Arts, this is a program for you. Fulbright is open to students from all fields. And whether you're thinking of applying in fall 2020 or in a couple of years, now is the right time to learn about it. So we're glad that you're here, and we look forward to sharing the information and stories and experiences that we have with you. So since we are a pretty moderately sized group, we want to emphasize that this is conversational to the extent possible. I know we're on Zoom, but please use chat. The co-hosts, so our speakers who I'll make co-hosts, will be looking at that, as will I. So if you have questions, please share them with us. Best to wait maybe until the end of each presentation so that we're paying attention to the chat and we can answer your questions. I've also received a number of questions through the registration form, which I've incorporated into my remarks as well. So the lineup for this morning is, first you'll hear from me, and I will talk about the Fulbright program, eligibility, the different types of awards, selection process, and the campus selection process. Then you'll hear from Dr. Bill Roberts, who is Assistant Professor of Occupational Therapy, he's waving now, in the College of Health Sciences, and he held a Fulbright Award. Sorry, I'm trying to admit people here as I talk, so I'll do this, to Trinidad and Tobago. So he is our resident Fulbright awardee. And we also have Dr. Daniel Carbajal, a postdoctoral scholar in chemistry in the College of Science. And he's going to talk to us about international research and the value of it and what that can add to your portfolio and your experience. And so he's conducted research in Mexico, in France, and also here at UTEP. And so a bit of housekeeping on Zoom. You're all probably used to using it by now, but you'll note that I've muted everyone automatically. That's just for the purposes of the presentation. I will unmute during Q&A, but feel free to use the chat. And I'll also share the email address for my office where you can reach me with questions, or if you'd like to set up a time to talk about your application. I'll show that address also, but if you'd like to write it down, it's Student Fellowships, all one word, fellowships with an S, studentfellowships@utep.edu. Okay, so with that, I am going to share my presentation here. All right, and let's see here, let me get out these notes. So we'll start out, the slide will change, go ahead, slide. Okay, so let's talk about what the Fulbright program is. So the program was established by Congress in 1946, and it's basically about being a cultural ambassador, using your research or teaching English as a way of building bridges between societies. So fostering mutual understanding, advancing knowledge, improving lives around the world. It's funded by the Department of State, and it's administered by an international NGO called the International Institute of Education, which is based in Washington, D.C. Now, one of the things that's important to note about Fulbright is that while it's administered centrally, funded by the U.S. government, administered mainly in the U.S., there are also binational commissions in the 140 countries across the world where Fulbright awards are given that also evaluates your application. So your application is read not only by a committee of US-based experts, but also by a committee in the host country. So it's very important, and I'll return to repeatedly throughout this, to read the country-specific requirements for each award, because they're all different. So that's in some ways difficult to give a presentation generally about Fulbright and have you get all that specific information. But my goal is to give you the basic background, and then you'll go and research those countries you're interested in on the Fulbright website and read about their requirements and see if your project is a good fit. And if not, there are always lots of other countries that you may be a good fit for. So that's an important basic. Eligibility. I got a lot of questions about this before the event. And the main requirements are that you have to be a US citizen by the application deadline. You have to hold a bachelor's degree. So I don't want to dissuade any freshmen, sophomores, juniors who are in the room here. It's important to start thinking about Fulbright early, but it is an award that you apply for at the earliest your senior year. There's a lot you can do to prepare for that, so it's good to know about the award from the beginning of your career. You have to have a bachelor's degree, but you don't have to be a graduating senior to qualify. This award is open to recent graduates, so say you're 1-2 years out, say you learn about it this year and you apply next fall instead. It's open to graduate students, master's students, doctoral students in any field. The only requirement is you cannot have a doctorate at the time of application. Now, I got a number of questions about how the pandemic was affecting Fulbright, or basically any travel. And I want to be clear that the Fulbright Commission they don't say whether they're not going to give awards. They are giving awards. They haven't canceled the competition. So the funding is available. It's just the same as any other year. Now, bear in mind, you're applying in fall 2020. It's not until a full year later that you would actually go abroad. So I don't want that to dissuade anybody from applying. If you look at the current situation, it is true that the 2020 Fulbrighters were recalled to the US, but Fulbright has not said that that's going to happen this fall. So a year from now, they're not even projecting that far ahead as to what's going to happen. So these awards are here, they're available. This is a year in advance that you apply for this, so definitely still apply. Award types. There are over 2,200 awards that are given out each year to 140 plus countries. So you can pretty much go anywhere in the world with this award. And there are two types of awards, and you've probably read about these on the Fulbright website, but there are study and research grants and English teaching assistantships. We're going to talk today mostly about study and research because that is what our two speakers have done with their grants and with their research. But I'll also talk a little bit about English teaching assistantships. And I know there was some interest in that, and I'm happy to talk more with students individually if they're applying for the English teaching assistantship. For Fulbright, you apply for one award to one country each year. So say, for example, you want to do research in Argentina. You look at the Argentina Fulbright Commission's requirements, you apply specifically for that award to Argentina. Similarly, if you wanted to teach English in Belarus, it would be the same sort of thing. You would follow their requirements. Most of these programs are an academic year in length, approximately 9 to 10 months. And study research is just in a nutshell, this is where you develop a research project, you work with an advisor at a foreign university. And as I said, these awards are open to all academic, creative, and performing arts fields. English teaching assistantships are a bit different. You're placed in a classroom where you assist local English teachers. You help teach English, and you're also simultaneously a cultural ambassador for the U.S. The age and academic level of the students varies, so you could be teaching kindergartners up to university students, and that's all determined by the host country. Some of you asked whether you need a teaching English as a foreign language credential, and again, I'm going to return to that answer of it depends on the country and the commission what they're looking for. So when you look at their English teaching awards, you can see whether they require a TEFL, teaching English as a foreign language credential, if they require teaching experiences. So many of them don't. Many of them say, yes, we give priority, or they don't say that at all. So it really depends on the country. And just like research, you can apply for English teaching assistantship to one country per year. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing here for a moment because I want to ask all of you some questions. We're going to make it interactive. And so some of you asked, how likely is it that I'm going to get a Fulbright? And this is always the question because you're investing a lot of time, and I understand that. So I want to ask you that question. How many people do you think get a Fulbright? And so we're going to do it by country because, like I said, it depends on the country. Each country gives a certain number of awards. So if you can put in the chat, last year, if 100 people applied for Fulbright to the UK, how many do you think got it? You can put it as a number or percent, but just what percent of applicants do you think got a Fulbright award to the UK? Okay, so we see 20, 15 to 20, 10, 5, somebody's cynical. Okay, 75.
This is out of 100, Dr. Meinzer?
Yes, out of 100, yes.
Okay. I'm guessing too.
You're not allowed to guess because you probably—
No, I'm guessing in my mind. I'm guessing in my mind.
Okay, so the lowest is 2% from Dr. Roberts, and then we had upwards to 75%. Okay, the answer is 4%. So what does that tell us, aside from the fact that Fulbright is Eurocentric, is that there are countries that are very popular. And out of 1,029 applicants last year, 46 got awards. Okay, so let's try another one. We'll do South Korea. So what percentage, we'll do just percent. So throw out there, what percentage of all the applicants who applied for awards to South Korea got them? 10, 25, 3. Okay, 45, 1.5. Okay, we're going even lower. Okay, so the answer there is 30%. So very different, right? Well, let's do one last one. Brazil. What percentage of applicants would you say got the award? 35, 50%, 45, 10, 15. Okay, so I see your expectations are scaling downwards. But this might surprise you. So Brazil, 53 people applied last year, and 30 of them got awards. So that's 56%. So it really does depend on the country you apply to. So I encourage you to think broadly about your research project. If it's specifically you're studying this cultural group in this country and you can't do it anywhere else, by all means apply to that country. But if there are other places you could do your research, if you could teach English anywhere and it doesn't have to be in the first country that comes to mind, maybe you want to go to Europe. Well, you saw what happens when everyone wants to go to Europe. So you can think broadly. Look at these statistics. So I published, I think I'm gonna, in the very beginning of the chat, if you scroll back, I put the statistics link. So all of these statistics are available to you. You can look at the countries you're interested in. Okay. So I hope I both encouraged you and gave you a sense of the range of rate of return for these fellowships. So we're going to go back to the presentation here and get it into presentation mode. There we go. Okay, see if this is showing up. Okay, so let's talk about award benefits. Let me just make sure this is showing up. All right. Okay, so this is a grant. You are receiving money from Fulbright, and what you get included in the award is round-trip airfare to from the country, monthly stipend, which is not extravagant, but is covers living expenses. There is, in terms of medical coverage, accident and sickness benefits, but I should note that this is not health insurance. So Fulbright asks you to keep your normal health insurance during the award, and this is, you can think of the insurance they offer as catastrophic insurance. There are also other benefits, such as support for dependents, so people traveling with families, research allowances, there's language lessons, although you should always make sure that you're applying to a country where the language requirements, that you are already pretty much there. So the language lessons, it would be kind of a plus just to get you that extra last step, but you have to be pretty much at what they're expecting for a grantee. Okay, let's talk about the application components. So this is the part that my office and the campus Fulbright advisors can help you with. I'm going to talk about only a couple parts of the application. You're going to start at number 2 there, the essays. Both types of awards, research study and English teaching assistantships, require a statement of grant purpose. So this is the who, what, where, when, why, and how of what you're proposing to do while on the grant, whether it's research or teaching English. So for research, if you're pursuing a research project, you're going to develop a strong, feasible, compelling project, and you're going to show that you are the person who has the preparation, the drive, to be both a cultural ambassador and to use this project as a way of building connections with that country. If you're applying for an English teaching assistantship, the statement of grant purpose is more about what you bring to the classroom in the host country, and where you explain how you will adapt your pedagogy to reach students from a different pedagogical background. In both cases, I return to this again, you're going to tailor your statement of grant purpose very carefully to what the commission in that country is looking for. Personal statement is the other main essay that you will write. And a personal statement it's a difficult genre, but I think that the main challenge that students tend to run into is that they're either trying to write their resume in a narrative form or they repeat the statement of purpose. But the personal statement is very different, and you likely have written a personal statement when you applied to UTEP, when you applied to graduate school. This is the narrative of you as an individual, your personal history, your family background, influences on your intellectual development, ways in which you've grown through those experiences, your interests, abilities, plans, life goals. So this is an essay that I work with a lot of students on, or have in previous fellowship advising work, and it's something that takes a lot of time. So if you're applying in 2020, fall 2020, I strongly recommend starting to draft your statement of grant purpose and your personal statement now, because it takes many drafts and iterations, feedback from me, maybe from the Writing Center, from your faculty advisors, to really get it to express what you want to say and to paint a full picture of you as a candidate, because this is the only exposure that the committee that selects people for awards that they have. They have your information, they have your essays, and they have letters of recommendation, and that's it. So it all has to be in there, and each component has to shine a light on a different facet of what you bring to Fulbright as a grantee. Looking at number 3 on this list, foreign language evaluation. I received some questions about the level of language required. Again, that's going to depend on the country. Some say that intermediate language skills are required or recommended. So look at that language, required versus recommended, knowing that if you meet the required or recommended level, that's always, even if it says recommended, that's what you want to do. And so if you have questions about a particular country as you're starting to apply, please feel free to reach out to me and we can look at that together. Letters of recommendation. I can talk more about that. Let's see. I can talk more about that with people individually, but basically you want to choose recommenders that can all speak to different parts of you. So if you have a professor who knows your research really well, that's who you want. If you have a professor who knows your teaching experience, say you're in the School of Education, that's who you want. We can talk more about that individually. Okay, all right, so the last thing I want to talk about on this is under point 3, campus committee evaluation. So looking at the application timeline, the application is now open on Fulbright's website, and we have a campus deadline here at UTEP, which will be September 14th, 2020. And this is a full month ahead of the Fulbright's application deadline, which is October 13th. Now, when you apply to Fulbright, you have a choice of applying as an at-large candidate, unaffiliated with your university, or through your university. And I strongly recommend that you apply through UTEP, whether you are a current student or whether years down the line you're an alumni. Oh, sorry, I'm gonna admit somebody here. So what the benefit that you get from applying through UTEP is that your application is reviewed and you receive feedback from a campus committee of faculty who are familiar with Fulbright. And so it's an extra level of support that you get along the way. And we also will be doing, for candidates who submit full applications by the deadline, we'll be doing campus interviews. So this isn't a selection interview in the sense that we are not choosing whose application ultimately goes on to be considered by Fulbright, but it's a chance for us to get to know you, to give you feedback for the application, and also for us to write the campus recommendation form. Let's go back here. Can't seem to go backwards. The campus committee evaluation. So that's another component of your application that if you submit a strong application by the deadline, we can give you that evaluation and feedback, and also submit a form in support of your application at the end of it. Factors in selection, I won't spend too much time on this. We've covered some of it. Feasibility of the proposal, your professional academic preparation, language preparation. I want to skip down to the last point there, which is diversity. So Fulbright and a number of other fellowships, particularly now, are emphasizing that Fulbright is for everyone. It's for a diverse group of students. So when I was a student, one of my professors told me, oh, you should really apply for Fulbright. And I kind of brushed it off. I thought, well, that's not really me. That's people, like me, whatever that means, are not going to get Fulbright. And so I didn't really take it seriously. But I encourage you that if you are at all interested in Fulbright, it is for you. You're UTEP students. I've seen the GPAs of the students who are interested in this session. I know that you have strong academic preparation. And those of you that are doing research, this is a great opportunity, and I want you to apply, and we are here to support your application. So I will draw my part to a close just by pointing you again to the UTEP campus deadline. You start an application on the Fulbright website. I can see who's applying through UTEP. So if you say you're applying through UTEP, it will show up on a list for me. But your application has to be complete. All of the essays, all of the letters of recommendation, all have to be in by September 14th. So if you plan to do that, I encourage you to reach out to me. If you plan to go through the campus selection process, I encourage you to reach out to me. Also want to give you again my contact information. So here is the email address for my office. So I'm Dr. Melanie Meinzer. The office is Office of Student Fellowships and Awards, and the email is studentfellowships with an S at utep.edu. And so with that, I want to turn it over to Dr. Bill Roberts, who held Fulbright to Trinidad and Tobago, and he is going to talk about his experiences. And so Dr. Roberts, are you able to unmute yourself as a co-host?
Yes. Can you hear me? All right.
Yes.
Did you want me to share my screen or do you
Whatever
want?
you prefer. I can put them up now. Here, let's see.
Okay, go ahead, please.
Let's do.
Since I think you got that down a little better than I do, maybe. Okay, so thanks everybody for joining us. We're real excited that you're here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my experience as a Fulbright student grant recipient. And I received mine in 2000. So I applied in 2016, in the fall of 2016. So I got mine at a different university, Colorado State University, and but the application process is always very similar. So it was the final application was due in October. It was due to the Colorado State campus committee in September, I believe. So that's very similar. And I wanted to share my experience with you all because it's just something that's very powerful in a lot of ways. It's powerful on a personal level, and it's powerful on a professional and academic level too. So as I go through my experience for the next couple of minutes, I wanted to hit on 5 main things. And the things that I wanted to hit on is for you to think about your curiosity and passion. So whether you're pretty sure on that you wanted to go and teach as part of a Fulbright, or whether you wanted to do study and research, for you to think about your curiosity and passion. Also I'll talk about my experience and how I chose my country and an institution partner to help you think about how you might go through that process. And then to think about how you would use your resources and supports that are around you here at UTEP to maximize the potential of success in your application. And then also about using time in a way that, again, will help you to be successful in this process. And again, just like Dr. Meinzer was saying, is this is for you, whether you believe it or not. Let us, if you don't believe it, that's fine. Let us believe it for you. And don't count yourself out. It is a competitive thing. The Fulbright is something that is prestigious, and that's more reason for you to give it a shot. I'll tell you in a little bit later that I didn't think this is something that I could do because I'd heard about the Fulbright. I thought it was a prestigious thing, so then I probably wouldn't be able to get it, but then I was wrong. So and it has opened up a lot of possibilities for me. So why not do the same thing for yourself? So I'm going to hit on these as I go through my story. So Dr. Meinzer, can we go to the next slide, please? So let's think about curiosity and passion. And as we talk about that, I'll talk about my curiosity and passion. So I'm an occupational therapist by training, and I had practiced as an occupational therapist for a while, for a long time. And then my passion and curiosities about culture and context took me to Sri Lanka in 2011 through 2013 as a volunteer occupational therapist. And I became really curious about how culture impacted not only my practice with people with disabilities and mainly children with disabilities, but also when I was teaching, I was able to teach there and invited to return back to Sri Lanka and teach occupational therapists there. And so I began to be very curious about how culture and context influenced teaching. So that brought me to pursue my PhD at Colorado State University. And so that's a little bit about my curiosity and passion. And so then when it came time for me to figure out what I was going to do for my dissertation research, there's not a lot of opportunity for somebody who's interested in international occupational therapy education. There's not a lot of money out there to help somebody go study occupational therapy education abroad. Not a lot of people are interested in that because that's not everybody's curiosity and passion, but that's my curiosity and passion. And so when I heard about IIE, so IIE is the Institute for International Education. They're the ones that run the Fulbright. When I heard an internet session just like this one, I thought, boy, that's right up my alley. But then I thought, Fulbright, you know, Fulbright, I'll never get a Fulbright. That's crazy. But then thought, there, you know, why not? Why not apply for it? And with the right supports and from other folks at my university, it turned out to be a really amazing opportunity for me. So my curiosity and passion is occupational therapy education, culture, and context, and how those all come together. So think about, for you, what you're curious about and what you're passionate about, and let that guide you. You may already know what some of those things are, and maybe that's still, maybe you're not exactly sure what those are, and that's fine. But let this be a time for you to think about those and start for those to kind of crystallize a little bit and guide where you would like to teach or where you would like to go and do your research, because that can be very powerful, and that will come out in your application documents. Okay, I'm ready for the next one. And that curiosity and passion will help you when you choose your partner institution and country, and this is really important. And Dr. Meinzer really focused on this, and this was great. Because like if you want to go to France or you want to go to Germany, then you know everybody wants to go there apparently. My story is that I needed to go somewhere. My research was to study somewhere and figure out how an occupational therapy program made their curriculum that was situated in their particular culture and context. My advisors knew somebody who was doing just that in Trinidad and Tobago. So it was perfect that somebody was doing that in a country that I could go to that participated in the Fulbright program. So that lined up perfect for me. So I didn't choose Trinidad and Tobago first. First, I found a program that was perfect for me to study, and that's why I chose Trinidad and Tobago. But it may not work out that way for everybody. Maybe you have lots of choices of where you could go, and then you can be kind of strategic about which countries you choose. Everybody's situation will be a little different. But that's my story. But just a little bit, and Dr. Meinzer said that the Fulbright Student Program website is really, really great. I was looking on it just a little bit ago. You can go to each country and get information on each of those. And then it's kind of hard to find, but on the upper right hand, there's a little statistics tag, and then you can go and find your country and see how many in the past few years, how many applications they got and how many they accepted. So for Trinidad and Tobago, for the previous years before I went, they only got like 11 or 12 applications and accepted 2 or 3 every year. So the odds were pretty good compared to some other places. So take some time to choose your country and partner institution carefully, and not just your country, but the institution. And it doesn't have to be just a university. I know people that in Trinidad that worked with hospitals and other types of institutions as well. So it's really broad and who you can partner with. Just get those, make those contacts early, and because that letter, I think, carries a lot of weight. because it shows that you did your homework. When the people in country read your application, they can tell that, oh, this person has a plan. They know what they're going to do. They're going to come here and they're going to do a lot of good for our country. And they, you know, it's not just about their research, but it's also something that's going to do something that we need, and it's going to, that also is going to be beneficial for this place. So I think that's important as well. Okay. Thank you. So how are you going to find this institution and who you're going to partner with and all this stuff? That's not easy. So use the supports around you. And this is a picture of my advisor. And so she was key in helping me find the people I partnered with. So look at your faculty that you have good relationships with. Look at your advisors. Look all around you. Dr. Meinzer and myself are here to support you in different ways. And the review process is another way to support you as well. So those are so look at all the contacts that you have and use those as the best you can. So another thing, we can go to the next one. In order to put all these resources to the best use, and in order to make a strong personal statement and a statement of grant purpose and all these things, it takes time. So you need to make sure that you take the time to do these things well. Don't let the relatively short, you know, the personal statement is 1 page and the statement of grant purpose is 2 pages. That's harder. It would be, in my estimation, it would be easier if that statement of grant purpose was 5 pages, because you can just put everything in there, but it's not. So that means you have to put everything in there, all the details and everything they want to know, answer all their questions in 2 pages. And writing concisely and clearly is hard. So again, like Dr. Meinzer was saying, give yourself time, not for both of those statements, the personal statement and the statement of grant purpose, to go through them and give them several iterations. I know that when I put mine together, by the time April, I think in that timeline that Dr. Meinzer shared, it said like April to the August-September period is when you should be working on your application. My recommendation is that by April, you should know who you want to work with, you know, your partner institutions, because my recommendation would be during the summer might be a hard time to catch people if they're traveling or, you know, they have personal obligations and things like that, to ask them all the questions you need or to chase people down. So make sure those things are kind of hammered out a little bit before then. So then during that time, during your summer and everything, you can really focus on writing these applications. Again, allow plenty of time for revisions and revisions and revisions and revisions, and other people to have eyes on them, to look at them other than just you. And that's when because your language is gonna have to be really clear and get things really concise. And I would say for your personal statement too, your personal statement, yes, it's gonna talk about you know, you and the things that you've done, but I know that for mine, I also made sure that the things I talked about myself did lend themselves to the project and to the needs of Trinidad and Tobago where I was going, so that there was that clear through line between both of those. So you're gonna have to allow time for these things. These pictures are of Carnival in Trinidad and Tobago, by the way. Sorry, I haven't talked about that. Okay, let's go to the next one. So these are more Trinidad and Tobago pictures. It's a beautiful place. And this is my advisor and I there at one of the waterfalls. And so this is coming back to the 5th point, is why not you? So like I said at the beginning, I kind of thought, thought to myself, like, oh, Fulbright, you know, I've heard about the Fulbright. It's kind of a big deal. And I don't think, you know, thought about the odds of getting a Fulbright. I thought that they were like, there's no way I could get one. But then I thought, well, you know what, might as well go for it because it's a really great opportunity. And it is a really great opportunity. And I'll tell you why. For me, it allowed me to do research at a depth and a level that I never would have been able to do before. For me to be able to go to go somewhere for 10 months and do a study just the way I wanted to do is unheard of. And to be part of a group of amazing people and do this study like that, you know, and for that to be paid for. And again, Dr. Meinzer said, you know, it wasn't, you know, a huge amount, but for the type of work I do, it is a huge amount. To pay for me to go live somewhere for 10 months, that's crazy, you know. So yeah, to live in the Caribbean and study, you know, a whole program there is amazing. So why not? And also to let you all know a little bit, and we can, can we just go to just face-to-face stuff? We can go out of this one. Yeah, so you can just see my face for a second. The thing is too, is that what it covers, I was thinking about some of the things that Dr. Meinzer was sharing, is there's a lot that the grant covers. There is an orientation session that that beforehand I was able to go. I think now they're regionally, but you might go to Austin or you might go to Washington, D.C. or something like that, and you will meet all these other amazing folks. And I was the old guy there, and everybody else was probably closer to your age. And so, you know, just graduated or in master's programs and things like that, and learning about the amazing things these folks were doing in all sorts of fields. So that's the other thing I wanted to say, is that, you know, the great thing about Fulbright is that it is so broad. You can be a biologist, you can be studying languages, you can be studying, like me, you know, education within the health sciences. You can be doing all sorts of things, and it is open to you. And that is one of a lot of scholarships and grants and fellowships are very narrow, and that's great, but this is not. And this is really open for you to define what it's gonna be for you. My fellow Fulbright people in Trinidad and Tobago, one was an amazing artist, and she was studying new mothers and pregnant mothers and their struggles in Trinidad and Tobago through film. I mean, it was like really amazing. And then the other person was studying, not studying, but she was looking at girls that were in a detention facility. So you can do all sorts of things. It's really about what your curiosities and what your passions are. And so let that be your guide. And so some of the other benefits are post-grant benefits. And some of those are also during the grant. You may be able to go and meet the other grantees where they are in your region. They organize the grantees by region. So they might fly you to one place to have an education kind of session and everything. And that's really fun to meet the other people. And then post-grant is real important, because once you're a Fulbright student grantee, you are a part of the Fulbright family. So you will be eligible, you will be eligible for things that other people are not. So for example, I was eligible to apply for fellowships and grants as an alumnus. So I just applied for a grant or a fellowship to support my research. I just applied for one last week. It's an annual grant. So these are all things that are real important, and it's not bad on the resume because people recognize Fulbright. They know what that means. So anyway, these are all things. And so I thought it was something I couldn't do. I thought it was something that was that I wouldn't get, but I didn't know that until I tried. So don't limit yourself. If you try and other people say, no, you didn't get it, that's one thing, but don't you be the one that says, don't say no to yourself, let other people say no to you. I think, because you just don't know. So that's my 5 cents.
Thank you, Dr. Roberts. I really like that because so when I was a PhD student, I also spent 10 months overseas. I went to Palestine and I studied education under the Israeli occupation. And it's a chance to do your research, but as Dr. Roberts was saying, it's such a transformative personal experience to go through that and to be leading your own project. And I remember getting into like Jerusalem and moving into the West Bank and thinking, oh my gosh, I'm completely on my own. How I do this project is entirely up to me. But then that turned into just this excitement of like, it's up to me. I can do whatever I want. And it's just so exciting. And then also, you know, the point about not letting others say no. So when I was a PhD student, I applied for, I think, 10 to 12 fellowships to fund my dissertation research. I only got one. You know, but all you need is one, right?
That's
so
right.
again.
That's right. Well, and the one thing I want to say too is remember that for the Fulbright, they will fund all sorts of projects. The key thing is this cultural exchange. So that needs to be some type of thread in your application. So even if you're going to go and you're studying microbiology in Tanzania, I don't know where that came from, but you know, maybe that's what you're proposing. Then you also need to have some type of through is how are you going to connect that to the people, to the culture of Tanzania somehow?
Absolutely. I want to see if we can pause here and take any questions. So if that's all right with my co-hosts, I'm going to so I just clicked allow participants to unmute themselves. So that means that any of you are joining us today, if you'd like to send any sort of questions or comments, you can unmute yourself or feel free to put it in the chat.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm really interested in the English to teaching assistantship. So how would that work? Because I see with the study, you kind of have a plan in mind. So like I know with the studying, you said you kind of had to have like kind of in a sense like a syllabus in mind. But how would the application, I guess, be a little more different when you're trying to do that, the ETA?
I think in
That
some
makes
sense.
sense.
Oh yeah, no, definitely.
Sorry. Okay.
Definitely, and we've talked a lot about the research, open research study grant type, but so the English teaching assistantship, you know, I believe that the statement of purpose, so as I mentioned before, it's more about you as a teacher. It's less of you proposing your own independent research project, so they have more about it on the website. I hate to refer you back to that, but that's where you can read about how that's different. And I think what would probably help a lot if you're thinking about your essays is if you Google English teaching assistantship Fulbright essay, you can see a lot of schools have posted essays from successful applicants. You can kind of see, okay, this is the type of thing that they write about. And so that's a good place to start when you're thinking about what parts of my experience do I want to put into the essay. Does that tell me a bit more on it?
Well, yes. Well, I actually taught English in Mexico for a while, but it was kind of like through my own, like, I don't know, I wanted to take a gap year before, like during my previous college. So I kind of just did it on a whim. But it's like I didn't have much like help. I'm not an education major, so I wanted to I kind of want to go back to it, but I'm not studying education. So I guess that was my worry. Is like when I did it before, I was like, oh, I don't know about education. So now that I'm hearing about this fellowship, I'm interested, but I'm not like a teacher. I'm not studying education. So I guess that's like where I worry. Like you got to do syllabus and lesson plans, and you have no background in that. So that's where like I already went through where it's like, oh, I have to plan classes and I don't know. So I guess that's why I wanted to learn more. I don't want to be in the same boat and then not give good classes and this teach students are upset.
See, and as you said, you weren't a good teacher. I started shaking my head because I thought if you've been teaching already, if you've already been doing this,
No,
you
that
have
was
more.
everything. I have so much respect for my professors after that because I was like, you're the student and you're just like, ah, they're so boring or whatever. And then I was the one in the front of the classroom, and then I would see the students like checking their phones or something. Like, it's hard to teach. It's hard to get the students' attention. So I don't know. I guess
I already
that's
hear
my
great,
experience.
I already hear great material for your essay and what you're telling me.
Absolutely. I mean, the thing is,
Thank you.
is you take those pieces out, and I think that you took the initiative to go and to do that, and the lessons that you learned, you put that in there. Absolutely.
Okay.
And that you recognize that you don't have all of that, but you know what you need to learn.
Okay.
And that the people, and they also that you're willing to learn from the people that you will be with, and that you have something to learn, because there will be teachers that you would be with, I imagine.
Oh, that's helpful. Yeah.
And so that I think also the humility that that's also really important, that there is something to learn in another culture, and how do you teach in another culture. It's huge. So that's part of it. I mean, yeah, absolutely. So don't count yourself out. Don't count yourself out.
Yes, thanks.
Any other questions, comments? People can put things in the chat if they like. So here's one. Should be able to help us find a specific university to conduct research at, assuming we talk to our advisor or mentor. So that is a good question. I think that by and large, this is something that the applicant has to explore. So if you think about your topic, and it's about finding where are people who would be your logical connection to work with on this project. So you start with a research idea and project, and then you start looking for places, for homes for that research at different institutions. So in that sense, while my office or Dr. Roberts could give a general advice on how to look for that, really it comes down to knowing who does your research where. So that might involve, how would I approach that? So when I was doing my research, I did a lot of Googling. I would type in my topic or type in education and then different universities. And I found some professors who did what I was doing. And I thought, okay, this could be somebody who would see value in my research, who might write me a letter of affiliation. So there is a lot of just general exploring, I think, at the stage that you're at for the question writer there. Okay, so let's move on since we're moving through our time here. Let's go to our final presentation. So Dr. Daniel Carbajal is a postdoctoral scholar in chemistry, and I'm going to share some slides here he has sent me, and so Dr. Carbajal, please tell me to advance the slides and I'll move through them.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Yes, okay. So, let me introduce myself. I'm from Mexico. I have a PhD on agronomic science from the University of Angers in France. I'm going to share a little bit about my experience as a researcher in another country, and you will see why I identify myself with a lot of the topics or the things that Dr. Roberts said, because it was so similar, even if our areas of research are so different. I'm a chemist, so my experience was very similar to that, because my research chose the country that I went to. I didn't choose France. My research required for me to go. So even if my title says University of Angers, my research I did my research mainly in the College of Agriculture, the Superior College of Agriculture, which is a small, um, on a small school. It's a graduate school, but has this laboratory that's focused on agriculture and in wine and food science. That's a very good laboratory. So this was a collaboration between the Superior College of Agriculture and the University of Chihuahua. And it was financed by CONACYT on Mexico and the government of France. So it's a program similar to Fulbright. Uh, Fulbright is much better from what I've been hearing because I had to pay the plane money for myself. So that's a very huge difference right there. Okay, so Angers, it's a small city in France. It was built at the side of a river. So right now there is a huge river at the middle of the town, and it has a very specific climate. The weather is very unique. So my research, if we go to the next slide, please. My research was okay. So there is this wine, very sweet and tasty wine called Coteau de Leon, which is similar to the Sauterne that you can buy here in El Paso, but not as expensive as the Sauterne. It's very complex, very sweet, and the making of this wine is very interesting because it's made from botrytized grapes, which are grapes infected by a fungus. This fungus makes the water from the grape to evaporate and the sugars are concentrated. And then you will have all this chemical process that brings aromas and very complex flavors. So it's a very interesting one. But what I was interested in was the process of the evolution of the infection and all the chemical processes. So that's what I was studying. But in order to this infection to develop in the way that you will have this wine, you need the specific climate that it's only found in some places in the world. And Angers is one of those places. So I started this research during my master's in Chihuahua. And my advisor at the time, she did her PhD in France, so she had this curiosity of what's going on there. So she passed it to me, and I had the opportunity to go to France for 3 months. So I had two different experiences, one in my master's and one in my PhD. When I went there in my master's, it's a different situation than when you do your PhD because you have a lot of advice from your advisors. You have a lot of tutorship. So I did my master's in 3 months because we tried to duplicate. My master's lasts for 2 years, and we tried to duplicate the infection in the lab. It was not possible, so I had to travel to France. And when I was in France, I finished my research for my master's in 3 months. I talked to my advisor there in France, and I asked for a PhD. And that's how I get my opportunity to do a PhD in France. And well, I do the application that is similar to what we are talking about here. And actually the percentage of selected people are very similar. So I did get my grant from CONACYT, and then I went in 2012 to France to do my PhD. And it's very interesting the way that the PhDs are conducted in France. If we go to the next slide, please. the university I was enrolled in, the University of Angers, has something that's called doctoral college, called doctoral. So there has it's a collaboration between several universities in the area, in that area. So that's what's called Doctorat Bretagne. And for each doctoral colleges, there are different universities that are part of each college. In my case, it was what now it's called the EGAL, for Ecology, Geoscience, Agronomy, Alimentation. In my time, it was called different. It was BENAM. But you can see in the left corner, one, two, there are 6 universities that are part of this college, and 5 or 4 laboratories that are partners. What this means is that you can go to any of these universities to take courses, or because they are not traditional lectures. You take seminars that are 48 hours or something in that range, 2 days, 3 days, or a weekend. So you have the opportunity to go to a lot of universities, a lot of cities in that area, and you know a lot of people, because there are people from all over the world. Even if I don't know if you realize that France is way smaller than the United States or Mexico. It's even smaller than Texas. It's smaller than Chihuahua. So it's full from people from all over the place, all over the world. So you will know a lot of interesting people, interesting cultures. And as it has been mentioned before, you are an ambassador of your culture. So there are a lot of cultural exchange, very, very interesting. So let's go to the next slide. As I was mentioning, there are no lectures, there are seminars. So you have to do at least 100 hours of training in 36 months. So it allows you to focus on your research. And these are just examples that I put of the kind of seminars that you will find there. And there are the other 40 hours that you have to accomplish, that are very simple seminars of just one morning, that it's prepare your job interview, or how to publish or write your paper. Tools that will be that are helpful for your research. But you don't have to do the 100 hours or the 40 hours of only seminars. We'll go to the next, please. You can do presentations, congress, or what's called a stage. That's you go to another laboratory in another country, not your country of origin. You cannot come to the United States and say, I did a station in the United States. Now you go to another country, and all the time you do there, it counts for your 100 hours of training. So what I'm trying to say here is that in my case, it was encouraged to focus on your research, and there's no the distraction of lectures. There are no the distraction of homework or anything. You are focused only on your research. And I think that's a very good thing to have when you are learning to be a researcher, because it's hard to be a researcher. But if you have the interest, if you have the passion, you will. I think that you will find this experience very valuable to you as a person and as a scientist. The other thing that I wanted to mention is that going out to another country, it's hard. It's you have this fear that going out to another place where you don't know the language, you don't know anyone, And yeah, it's hard. And when you are finishing you are graduating from university, or you just finished your master, you can have the imposter syndrome. That's very common, or the I don't know anything syndrome. But that's how my father calls it. So it's very natural to have these feelings that, oh, but I didn't learn anything from my time in school or anything. But you have to have you have to try, because if you don't try, you are missing opportunities that doesn't present every day. There are not opportunities that you will find every day. So when they present, I will advise to take. And the other thing is that when you are in another country, you will build relationships with other scientists that work in your same area. And these are things that you are going to carry to your professional life or your work afterwards. And when you're a researcher, you are part of a community that's built from people from all over the world that work in the same topics as you. And it's in this community, like in every other team or organization that you are part of, there are competitions and there are collaborations, and you need to know people, and you don't have, and if you stay with only the people that work in the same laboratory as you work, uh, your horizon is very limited. So you have to try to know people from all over the world, and this is a very good opportunity to do that, because these are the people you are going to compete with. When I was doing my first postdoc in the University of Chihuahua, I was working trying to isolate a very specific compound from grape pomace, or it's the waste after you do wine. But this same research was, there were some people at Portugal doing the same exact research. And I was working with a device that I built from very old parts that they had in the laboratory. And in the University of Portugal, they had all this state-of-the-art equipment. And I said that it was like racing against a Ferrari with a bicycle. So of course they beat me to it. But it's interesting to know the people you are going against, or the people you are collaborating in another country. And the only way to do that is to travel, to go to another place and to have this experience by yourself in another place. There was this question on how to find my university, if you are going to help, if someone can help you. I will advise for that to ask, to talk to the people at UTEP, for example, that are doing this kind of research, because they for sure know where are the people that work with that area. They for sure know someone that does the same thing you want to do. The other thing you can do is start with a country, look at the universities, and look for who does the kind of research you want to do. Read all the papers you can about from that person, and contact these researchers in those universities. It's very important for you to contact them because they have to know who are they receiving, and they have to know you, and you have to know them. There has to be some exchange of information because they are going to be host someone, and so they have to know them. So I think you have to start doing some research on where do you want to go, and who do you want to work with, because it's very, I think it's it's a very important step.
Okay, great. Thank you, Dr. Carvajal. I think that's fantastic. So I wrote down a couple things while you were talking. And this idea of building connections, using it to build connections for graduate school or during graduate school, I think is really important. And if you think of it, if you're a senior, say, and you're thinking of going to graduate school, you don't have to be in a graduate program. You could see this as your first independent research project, and just think how amazing that's going to look on your graduate school application too. I mean, in addition to all of the benefit that you'll have of going through this experience, gaining that independence, making those contacts. Yeah, so I also wanted to add, as Dr. Carball was talking, is that you can use a Fulbright for research, or you can use it in a graduate program. So if you want to go to a country and study a topic, you can use it for that too. It doesn't have to be just purely for a research project, or it could be a combination of the two. So thank you to both of our speakers. So we have about 15 minutes now here at the end.
Can I add something really quick too?
Absolutely.
I just also want to, and correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Meinzer, but from my experience is that, I just want to say is that your partner institution does not have to be a university. It can be that if that's what you need it to be, but it can also be another type of institution that's willing to work with you. Like I said, some of my colleagues that were also Fulbright recipients at the time when I was there, well, maybe there were, well, anyway, I don't think it always has to be, but I think it also depends on the country. So maybe look into that. Or maybe I think it also can be a combination. Sometimes they would have their primary, sometimes one of their partners would be in a university, but they would be doing a lot of their work in another institution. So it has different combinations. So just look into that and just know that there is some flexibility. Am I wrong about that, Dr. Meinzer?
Well, I was just typing it in as you're talking to check, and you're right. So it can be different types of institutions. Okay. It doesn't have to be university. Depends, again, look at the country requirements. So it all comes.
Okay.
Okay, great. So there were a couple of questions that have come in on the chat. So here's one. It says, still in college, how many times do you recommend applying and preparing for the program? So really, I mean, you can start thinking about it depending on where you are in college. So I'll just answer this generally for everyone, is that if you are, say, a sophomore, there are things you can do to prepare for Fulbright. You can think, do I want to do English teaching assistantship? Do I want to do research? You start making those connections that we've talked about, doing that exploration. Getting involved in undergraduate research through Curie on campus is a great way to get some experience to make your application for Fulbright more competitive. So it's all about getting those building blocks of experience that build up to, hey, now I'm a senior, I have research experience, maybe I've studied the foreign language a bit, now I am ready to do this project. So no time is too early is what I'm going to say for that one. Are there other thoughts on that from my co-hosts?
I would say it really depends on what you need it to be. I know, so if it sounds like you're an undergraduate right now. So I think that technically it would need to be probably right before it would need to be in your senior year as far as the technical application date. Because you have to have finished your undergraduate by the time you start. So that's like technically, but you definitely want to start the process beforehand because you can get all these great experiences and all that type of thing beforehand.
Yeah, I will add that as an undergraduate, what you want to do is to approach the professors at UTEP that work in the research of the topics that you want to go study in another country. So that will give you some experience, and that will give you the connection with the professor to get your recommendation letter and all the stuff like that.
Thank you. So there's another question here. It sounds like, so this is from somebody who's studying bilingual education, and I think the question at the end is sort of how do I begin this process when there's so much information coming at you? And so I won't just direct you back to the website. I'll direct you to me. Email me, make an appointment with me. We'll talk through it, and we'll find that first starting point. And I'm going to give away it's going to be, you're going to start trying to draft that that statement of grant purpose and the personal statement, because writing is a way of helping to think through, okay, what exactly do I want to do? It's kind of a way of taking all of that's in your head, all of the ideas, and putting it on paper. And then I can also talk you and anyone else who's interested through some of the requirements for the countries. So we'll take all the information, we'll think specifically what countries are going to work for you, then we'll start thinking about the essays. So those would be the first steps. And then we have questions. Okay, we have a number of questions coming in. So the next one on the list was, who can write a reference letter? Only a professor and employer. Generally, it's your professors, particularly ones who know you well. And if there's other thoughts on that, it's pretty usual for Fulbright. So we have another question from somebody hoping to reach us. Yes, you can write to either me at studentfellowships@utep.edu. I'm going to volunteer Dr. Roberts. You can also write to Dr. Roberts, depending on, yeah, it's up to you.
No, that's fine.
If you have general questions about the application process and eligibility, write to me. If you have sort of maybe questions more about the experience of the program, I mean, anything that is just sort of the starting out, wanting to talk through your thoughts, bring that to my office. That's what we're here for. And then our faculty advisors are there to help with essays, but also, if you have questions, you can ask them too, but that's probably at the point where you're starting to work on the application as opposed to deciding where do I want to apply. Okay. Oh, lots of questions now, everybody. So I'm learning that people are much more comfortable writing questions. Okay. I understand. I'm the same way when I'm on calls. I would much rather do that. So let's see. Does being an NSF scholar and having previous research internships experience improve your chance of becoming a Fulbright scholar? Yes. So yes. So it's about how you package it together to highlight those experiences. But those are absolutely the experiences that you want to be applying for earlier on in your career. And I think that Fulbright has a reputation for being mostly for liberal arts students. They welcome students from all disciplines, and so there are awardees in engineering, there are awardees in the performing arts, it's everyone. Okay, so Dr. Roberts has just put in his email address there. So we see here, senior studying music education. I'd love to apply in the same year. Afraid the application may feel rushed. Well, it is a smaller time frame, but I admit I rushed to hold this session because I wanted to find the students that are interested in applying this year. So we are here. We're ready to work with you. I say we, my office is me at the moment, but it will soon be other people. But if you want to apply this year, let's set up a time to talk and let's get that process started. We're here to help. With that, I think we are running up at time. Are there any other questions or maybe final remarks from co-hosts? You don't have to have a closing statement. Just open up the floor again to anyone who would like to speak.
I think that I've said everything that I planned on saying, so I just would encourage everybody to think it over, look at the information online. It sounds like it is overwhelming. There is a lot there. So just look it over, mull it over, think about what excites you, and then ask. There are people here that are specifically, like Dr. Meinzer in her office, are specifically here to support you. This is a stated goal of the university. President Wilson and others specifically brought her here to do this. Just know that this is important to the university, and it's something that I'm excited about because it was obviously important to me, and exciting and fun and challenging and all of the things. And so And for me, one of my big things is supporting students to do new things. So we want to help you do this as well.
All right. Well, thank you very much to Dr. Roberts and Dr. Carvajal, and to all of you for attending. Again, you can email me at studentfellowships@utep.edu, and we will eventually be posting this session on my new office website, so you'll be able to access this webinar as well. So with that, we will, oh, one last question.
Yep.
Okay. If we applied in fall 2020, the program begins a year after. Yes, it would also, they typically start in the fall.
But there's some flexibility for this. Sometimes I think the range is to start, I know I was planning, so I applied fall of 2016. And then originally I was going to start in August of 2017. But then for stuff that happened, I couldn't start until November of 2017. But I think that they told me there was even a little more leeway than that. I could have even started even later. So there is a window.
Yes, yes, there is a window for that, for sure. All right, thank you, everyone.